Hi, welcome to our channel. This is Dinner Discussions with Mark and Laura. So obviously I'm Laura and I am, yes, this is Mark. And I am a divorce recovery expert. My name is Laura Richardson and I've been a licensed attorney in Texas for the past 14 years. I'm also licensed in New York. I've been licensed there more than 20 years. I've practiced mainly family law, and so that's just been my passion. And I've now made a transition to life coaching, and so I'm really helping women really excel in life after divorce, whether it is dealing with high conflict with your ex or dealing with, how to get your arms around your finances and really get some structure around you, ideas about additional income after divorce, because a lot of times when you're down to one income, you really are in a position of really trying to figure out what things look like and getting to learn to like new things and cutting back and all that good stuff. But not only that, but also about dating and how to kind of navigate that. And so that's what these dinner discussions are really going to be about. And so that's kind of my background. And Mark, if you want to tell them a little bit about your background as far as dating and really helping people kind of walk through that journey after divorce.
I was married for 20 years, very happily, and it ended in a divorce, some adultery by my ex-wife, and started dating at that point. I really went back to a place where it was good, good constructive work. I went to the right people, right groups, and got connected with them right away.
Even as far as your experience with helping other people here in the Dallas area, just want to give a quick idea about that.
And so then I'd gone through divorce care classes and so on, and then about 20 years after, or 19 years after, I started doing divorce care at a very large church, and had up to 150 people in my class, and very successful.
Mm-hmm.
And
when you say doing, you mean you were facilitating the class. You were teaching.
Yeah, teaching
the class. Mm-hmm.
And leading the class, and then
Leading
taking, of course, the questions and answers, and also on the weekdays people are calling and trying to get some help, so on.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was a full scope. Anyway, it was you learn a lot when you're with people going through it,
Mm-hmm.
and you actually comes up, some of the issues you had will come up in that as well, and you can kind of work through those too, because you do you continue to work through them.
Yeah. And so we just kind of came up with, it'd be really cool if we could just kind of sit down as, we both have a background in leading people after divorce and helping them through the most difficult time in their lives. And so we're going to have these dinner discussions. So we literally can sit in here. I have my salad. Mark has his wonderful salmon and veggies.
This is salmon? Okay.
Yes. So if you don't mind just saying grace, and we'll get started.
Come, Lord Jesus, be our guest, and let these gifts to us be blessed. Amen.
Amen. Okay, so we're going to really focus in today on what are the hard lessons or the most important things that we learn when we're just getting out there after divorce into the dating world. What would you really say was really, if you could sit back and talk to, Mark back then. Now you have been married for, you said, for 20 years, right? So how long have you
I was married for 20, and I've been divorced now for 20, actually.
Okay. All right. So thinking back at that time when you were newly divorced, what would you say was one of the things, God, I wish I would have known that then, what I know now, so to speak.
Well, when you're young, and that's what I was pretty young when I got married. You don't know much about yourself, I think, and you don't know much about other relationships. I'd only dated 2 other women in my life before I finally met my future wife, and then we dated for a while, for less than a year, and then got married, and was married for successfully for 20 years. At least I thought so. And so yeah, that's how that happens. And then when you get divorced, of course, do you want me to continue with that? The security that you've had is gone. It's the trust is gone. I was a husband, but I was also a father, and a responsible father. So to me, and we owned a home, so I was taking care of the home. Everything in my life changed very suddenly. I was all of a sudden not a husband. My being a father was now being drawn away from me because the children were being with her more than me. And then I had to have them on the weekends, which meant that it was frustrating because I could not see them all week. Being a father was really difficult. But I think one of the first things that I went through when I got divorced was I didn't trust anyone. When you lose the trust in somebody that you love so much, and I'm sure a lot of people can agree to this, once you've done that, once you've lost that trust, it's hard to get that trust back. You keep thinking somebody's going to lie to you. And it takes a long time to get over that, because it was a 20-year trust that I had in this person. And then the other thing is, who can you trust? I mean, you can't just trust anyone. What I found out along the way that I would share with some in my family, who I love dearly, but they would share with somebody else, like, oh, wait, no. And plus, a lot of them, of course, none of them have been divorced, so they were unaware of knowing, what it was like to go through a divorce. Mm-hmm. They thought it was something that I did, or, they had no idea what was going on. So it was a trust issue that I had issues with.
Okay, so how do you think that kind of translated into, when you thought you might be interested in starting to date? How do you think that violation of trust kind of factored into your dating experience at that time?
I was fortunate. Somebody directed me to some classes for divorce care. And so I was going through it. I didn't believe some of the things they said, which they said, take your time, get healthy. In fact, they said, take 2 years off. Don't do anything. Just take 2 years off. Find out who you are. So I think in frustration, I thought, nah, I don't need that, because I know who I am and so on. But I'm guaranteeing you, if you're going through it, take 2 years off. Just take 2 years off. Find out who you are. Get your feet on the ground again, which is what I had to do. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people understand this. As a father and a former husband now, what I used to think was important, now I no longer had a yard to mow, as I was living in an apartment versus in my house. When the kids would come home at night, I was busy trying to figure out what we were going to do every night, and so how we were going to accomplish that activities. That's all changed. So I had to find a way to cope with that, and I did that in the divorce care classes. The good thing about the divorce care classes I was in, well, there's a lot of people in there going through even worse cases than mine, and so you get a lot of people who understand what you're going through, and it lets you see that you're not alone, and that's really important too. And when you're in these classes and you hear the other stories, sometimes you go, oh, I'm glad that's not me. But mostly you're just saying, I'm not alone. I'm not alone. I'm really one of many, sadly, that are going through this.
Okay. So when you thought you were ready to get out there and you started dating, how did you feel about your prospects of finding someone who you really thought you can share your life with again?
Well, I think, first of all, I didn't think I could attract anyone. I thought.
What do you mean by you? Well, wait a minute. What do you mean by you didn't think you would be able to attract anyone?
Well,
why did you feel that way
when I was in my 20s, I got married the first time. I was young and crazy, full head of hair, and very active. And then when I got divorced, though, I was in my 40s, and you're thinking, well, where am I going to find somebody who's in their 40s, and how am I going to attract somebody that's in their 40s? So there was a whole thing about attraction to somebody else. But that was one of the fears I had, was trying to find somebody. That's why I stayed in the groups, by the way. They were healthy, first of all, the groups I found, And also, there were women in there who were trying to find healthy solutions as well. So I kept into those groups. I stayed away from the sort of dating clubs that were just dating. I wasn't ready for dating. And I really understood that after the classes when I heard some of the stories of how some people started dating before they should have. It was really, some of the stories were, and that's one of the things about the group sessions. You hear things and you realize two things. You realize, slow down, take your time. And the other one is, you're not alone. You're not alone. Other people have gone through this too. You may think your situation is unique. It should be, but it's not. The divorce rate is very high now, and people are people. And there's a lot of reasons it happened to me was, I think, age. You know, I was innocent and young, and I should have taken my time and really dated longer to find out who I was, and who she was, of course.
You mean before you got married?
Before we got married.
Okay.
So, second time around, same thing. Take your time, find out who you are first, and then, find out who they are.
Okay, so was that a challenge for you? Trying to, when you first got divorced, did you feel like you knew who you were?
No, I didn't know who I was. I built up my life to being an employee, first of all, but then a husband and a father, and that's who I was. In the community, we served in the community. We were very active in the community, and so all of a sudden, all of that was gone. My identity was gone. Okay. So I had to rebuild a new identity, and I didn't know who I was. Okay. I really did not know who I was.
And how do you think that factored into you dating at the time? How do you think that factored into the quality of women that you were attracting? And how do you think that affected the way that the relationships, I guess, did or didn't develop?
Well, I think in a way you're kind of lying when you're dating somebody within that first couple of years. You're saying that I'm ready to date, and anyone you're dating thinks you're ready to date. You're ready to go, all the way and become a mate. But sadly, you don't even know yourself. Most people don't understand. They need the time out. And so I was the same way. I thought I could do that and get back on. And I was wrong. And I tried. I dated a few times and found out that, sure, I can find women to date, and I can, one step at a time, I knew I could, attract somebody. And but we stayed in the groups, and I really stressed the groups. Those are where I learned the most about myself and about others and how I reacted. And it's safe. That's the other thing. You're safe in group. Don't get alone. Don't date. Just stay away from that. So, and group dating is good. I mean, you get to know people, get to know yourself. Like I say, the most important thing I can tell you right now, I did not know myself. I had to reinvent myself.
Okay. Well, I can tell you, one of the most important things that I learned after dating, after divorce, first newly dating after divorce, was not everybody out here who's dating is emotionally healthy to be out here dating, and they don't realize it. And if you try to tell them that, or if you recognize that, they will fight you to the death. Because, I guess a lot of people, they just want to say, yeah, I'm okay, and I can get out here and do this. And, they kind of approach it in the same way as, you fall off the horse, you better get right back on, right away, or else, that fear is going to paralyze you and you won't be able to move forward. And I think too, it's for a lot of people, they really feel like, well, I'm not going to let the sting of rejection or people think the sting of failure, really rock my boat. And so I'm just going to get right back out there. And I think in a sense, it's a way of self-medication. Them, getting out there and not doing the hard work, splitting themselves open and really digging and getting out all the root causes, whether they be ungodly beliefs or whether it be, um, just wrong ideas about, the opposite sex, relationships, marriage, all that. If they have unhealthy attitudes towards all of those things, then, a lot of people, they just don't want to do the hard work. And so, that's one thing. And so the second thing I'd say that I learned was, if a guy's talking about all the stuff he did 20 years ago and he's not really talking about the things that he's doing now, a lot of times, they feel like they've missed the boat, and there's a lot of anger attached to that. For a lot of men, well, yeah, not for quite a few
And
that I
women.
came into contact with. Not that I dated a lot, but just in contact with people in general. Whether it be, through interactions with clients or talking to other attorneys or whatever that was, or even just in my own research in, helping people after divorce, specifically women. For me, because in my practice, I focus in on women. What is it, that they're really feeling is a challenge out there in the dating world? And a lot of my research and a lot of my own, interactions with people, whether, there's a lot tied to it. They feel like they spent so much time and sacrifice, things that they thought that they would do, when they first got married or even right before they got married. And they feel like they compromised and sacrificed for the marriage. And now they feel like, 20 years ago, like, for example, there was one gentleman that I knew, and he had a very promising basketball career coming out of high school. And he got married, I think, shortly after he started college, and decided to go into a Christian basketball league instead of really going for the NBA. He had a scholarship to college. He finished college. But I think that he felt, you can feel the low level of anger and regret. And what I also found out is, when that person that they're really angry with, their ex, is not available, guess who gets the brunt of the anger? The person who's in front of them right now. So, that's one of the hard lessons that I learned. If the guy's just talking about the stuff that he did, 20 years ago, and he starts talking about, if I didn't marry her, I would have did this and that and that and this, and I would have had the money to do this and this and this and this. There's seems like a direct causal relationship between, the regret and the anger that they feel. That a lot of times, especially for guys, they don't know what to do with that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's the same for women. There's a lot of things you bring into a new relationship from your past. It's actually built on your experiences. And my experience was that somebody I had trusted so much turned out to be a liar. And she was caught. And so now you have to build that up again. When frequently you find people who are starting off too soon, and they want to lie about themselves and say, I'm good, and this is good, and this is good, and they put a front on that they're not. It's really important to be yourself when you're in dating. But you learn that. You learn just being yourself. Everything's revealed over time. Just take your time and let it happen. And that's another thing. Take your time. Take your time. I know it's something that I didn't want to hear when I got divorced. I wanted to fix things. I had seen my ex-wife find somebody and get in a relationship and get married within 2 years. And I was sitting there thinking, why can't I? Why can't I? But I was doing the right thing. I was trying to find the right thing to do and the right people and do it right the second time. So take your time. That's a really important thing. And really, after I got into step with things, and this is hard for people going through a divorce right now, when I got into step with things, it got to be fun. While it's a challenge in some ways to find out where there are good people to go and see on a regular basis, because I recommend that versus the online things, although I've dated online too. I'd rather meet in a group and meet somebody. That's kind of more the natural way of doing it. And then finding out who they are and then continue dating. And really, you've got to go to the groups where there are healthy people, and that's a little hard to do. Everyone thinks they're healthy, but that's where you do the interviewing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that. Okay. I'd probably say the second most important thing I learned was that there are people out here who are not necessarily looking for love, they're looking for help. And there's a heck of a difference. And so you just have to be careful of people's intentions. And I'm very guilty of, I'm thinking, I'm a lawyer, I'm a good, I can discern attitudes and, personalities. And, I was so overconfident that I didn't realize there was still some areas in my life that I needed to get some emotional healing. And I started noticing that I was attracting the same type of unhealthy, toxic person that I just divorced. And I'm like, no, no, and heck no. And so I started to notice a common denominator, men who were very angry and very sick. And sick, not necessarily just emotional wounds, but sick in their bodies. Their anger had manifested, I think, to a degree. I'm no doctor, but I think their anger had manifested into sickness in their body. And so that seemed to be the the theme. And I had to deal with some core beliefs that were ungodly about myself, that were attracting the right men. They were raising their hand and approaching me. And I'm like, I had to realize that I had to deal with those ungodly core beliefs within myself, root those out. And so that I was attracting the type of emotionally healthy, spiritually mature person that I wanted to be in relationship with. So,
Well, I think there's something you said too. It's interesting that I had to think of my role in being single. My new role being single is take that extra step. As the man, typically, we know that we have to be the one who asks. Would you like to go out? Would you like to see a movie? Would you like to attend this group session with me? So it's another learning phase that you go through. And women, I think, on the other hand, have to be ready to, how do I say this? To let men know that they're ready, that they're open to dating. And typically that is the role of men. It's still, I think, I was a little bit surprised a couple times of getting asked out, But I think that's a little more popular now than in my generation. But still, men,
yeah.
build up the courage and go. And that's another issue men run into. Asking someone. You could be turned down. And that's a big deal because it wounds you, and it tells you that you're not their type or whatever it was. It wounds you a little bit when you're turned down. But I can tell you, if you're in the groups and stuff and you've met them and you've been there for a while and you know them and they know you, most likely these women are going to say yes. Yes, I'll go on a date with you. Yes, I'll go see a movie or dinner. And I don't know about the dating thing. I learned about dating. You don't go see a movie. That's the worst thing to do. You go to a movie, you sit and watch a movie, you go home. I didn't even get to talk to them. So I learned that you find a nice place to go eat and sit and have a conversation where it's not too loud, it's good meals, and you sit and talk. That's the most important thing, especially in first dates, to find out who they are. And hopefully by then you kind of know who they are because you've seen them and that's why you're dating. Mm-hmm. But you may find something out that they reveal there at dinner. Maybe they eat with their mouth open and spit food across the table.
No. Well, that's not the funny part, but I had to, like you said, just really kind of figure out, I, like you, was married. Well, I was married for 19 years. And, I met my ex when I was 17. And so, I would even look back at that time period, even if I did have some dating experience to speak of. I would look back at that time period because, I was a kid then. And, at the time that I got divorced, I was about to turn 46. And I just had no clue, how to go about all this. So I had to learn a graceful way to decline an invitation to go out. And
Sure.
so, I would say something like this, and I would, if you ladies, if you want to find a nice way to make a gentleman feel, I believe, feel respected, but yet they will respect your wishes. I usually say something like, "Thank you for honoring me for coming over and asking, but I'm in a very loving relationship. But thank you for thinking of me, and I really wish you all the very best. Thank you so much for honoring me." Because I do believe that it's an honor to be pursued. That's just me. I'm old fashioned.
Yep.
And so I always thank them for choosing to, because I can't imagine what it's like to be the guy, choosing to come up and take the courage and ask and inquire to find out, because you see, you don't have a ring on, and so they know you're not married. They just don't know if you're in a relationship or not, if they don't know you anything about you. And so, one gentleman, I was happened to be in the Apple store, and I was in a relationship at the time, and not a good one. And afterwards, I kind of I kind of thought back, and I was like, "Dang, I should have." I was kind of the tail end of that other relationship anyway. I was like, maybe I should have eventually gone out with that guy. But anyway,
Wasn't me, was it?
no, it was not you. I didn't know you yet. But ladies, you have to find a graceful way. You're saying, "I'm going to have to decline your very kind invitation, but thank you for coming over and honoring me by asking."
Mm-hmm.
That's usually what I say.
And
I say, "You're very handsome, and if I wasn't in this relationship, I would have loved to get to know you better and have the honor of spending some time with you."
I'm going to talk to the men now. Get brave. Go out there and ask.
Mm-hmm.
What I found out was over time, I didn't know that women are attracted to men who have a good, solid income, that have a good, solid background, that have a good history in their business and wherever they work.
Yes.
They have a good family life, right?
Security.
Yeah. Little things. One of the women that I dated said, one of the things that had struck me was your car's clean. There's not ashtrays full or tissues laying all over the place, and your car's
food.
always clean. Yeah. And so,
Rotting apples and bananas in the back seat. I've seen that.
yeah, I think that it's important too that you're neat and nice and that you're organized, but it does you've got to find a. I was attracted to women. The women were attracted to me because of some of those things. And over time, they could see that I was consistent. Mm-hmm. And that I was honest as well. I think people can see that honesty in me after a while. Mm-hmm. And that takes time. Again, it takes time. You don't just go into the group and say, "Hey, want to go out with me?" It takes time. I mean, you are in this group and you meet somebody and you kind of see them once a week or once in a while. And then you kind of get to that point where you can trust that person, like you're going to go out with them. Now, dating, you meet someplace. You don't let them pick you up, and every guy in the room is going to go, no, I want to pick them up. No. Your first date should always be you go meet them someplace. If the date goes wrong, you can always go, "Well, it was a good meal. Thank you very much. I'm out of here." If it goes wrong and you're in their car, now you got to get a ride home. And so it's important to just, if you're meeting somebody new, be cautious and say, "Oh, this was a good meal. Thank you very much," and go home. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the best thing for everyone. That's what I learned over time. There's so many lessons in dating that I can give you. But one of the biggest one is just be honest. Just be honest. That's all there is to it. Yeah. And you're hoping that they're going to be honest with you, because it's a waste of time if you're not, because eventually you will reveal yourself. If they're not, they'll eventually reveal themselves. Mm-hmm. And so it's just useless. Just tell them like it is. If you clean toilets for a living, I clean toilets for a living, right? Mm-hmm. Fortunately, I was a very good job at engineering, and that it's an educated position, and I've been with the company for 30 years at the time, or 20 years, and so it was I was on solid ground. So I was attracted there. In fact, I was told that. I was attracted because of that solidity. And plus the fact that anyone sees me with my grandkids, you'll know that when they come up to me, they're hugging right now. They're playing like they're, there's every joy in the world. So you see that there's a kindness there too.
Mm-hmm.
And with my kids, you'll see that in them too. So when you meet someone that has children, which most of us at our age will, you watch the reaction and how they react and what they do and so on, because their kids are like them. Quite frankly, both of my children are me. One has one set of characteristics of mine, and another one has the other set of characteristics, and both a very loving people, but they're both me, and they have these different personalities. And so when you meet somebody and you meet their children and so on, you can see their personality in their children, and their solidity and how they react. If it's respect, I've actually seen cases where kids are pulling on them, hey, mommy, 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 mommy. And, well, okay, that happens when they're really young, but when you're 15, come on,
Yeah.
But then I also was in a relationship where the children came up to their mother and said, "Mother, may I interrupt for just a minute? I have a question." And you go, all right, now there's a person that's really taken time to structure something with their children. And when you see that, you kind of think their checkbooks are in order, their house is in order, their car is in order. And when those things are in order, you can kind of start seeing a pattern that they're ready. They're ready. Now, on the opposite hand, I dated somebody that didn't have any of that, that had so much dust, you think, hey, that came from like 10 years ago. Right?
Yeah. Well, I unfortunately got involved with someone who was actually a hoarder. So I'm like,
That's not me, right?
never again. No.
I'm the opposite.
But you have to take your time and discern people's intentions. That particular gentleman was certainly not interested in looking for love. He was looking for help, and was very charismatic. And I rushed into it being too trusting and thinking that I was ready. And it was right after my divorce, and I should have just taken the time to step back and just take a breath and
Forgive yourself.
yeah. And so one of the last thing that I'll say that I learned, an important lesson, is just making sure that, oh shucks, it just flew right out of my head. Sorry, it'll come back. Dang.
Yeah, make sure they have a big bank book.
Yeah, no.
No.
I wish. No, but stability is important. But you want to just make sure that the person that you're getting into a relationship with, that you have a point of reference. If you get to know their people, their friends, their family, that type of thing, and that helps you to get a better overall perspective of who they are as a person.
Absolutely.
And discern, what they say, the 5 closest people that you hang around, you tend to take on their behaviors and characteristics, and you're really heavily influenced by them. And so, that's important. That's still not what I wanted to say, but it'll come to me in a second.
On that point, one of the things I know now that I didn't know then was a lot of my friends were built in a relationship because of my ex-wife, right? We had friends because they were married people, and so I get divorced. Married people don't like to hang with divorced people, and they look at it as a conflict or something. So now all of a sudden, I have no friends, or very few friends, and even when I turn to those friends, which they're still, I would say, friends, but they kind of hold you back because they don't know who you are anymore. And there's a lot of reasons psychologically, but I mean, you see yourself having to generate new friends, and I was fortunate, so fortunate. I had an uncle who had gone through a divorce, and it was his fault, and he knew it, and he said some very wonderful things when I first got it. One of them was, find the people you really trust and talk to them. The people that you don't trust are the ones who don't show up, like the friends I was talking about. They turn out not to be friends. The real friends stick with you through thick and thin. A lot of my friends were really family. They are the ones I trusted. My uncle, for instance, was the one who I trusted. So finding the people you trust the most and then building your relationship from that, and they'll help you. They'll say things like, oh, don't be silly, don't be dumb. And you're like, or they'll help you find somebody a lot of times. Hey, I know somebody who's available, and I know somebody, although it never worked out for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's important too, especially for women. When women become single and they have married friends, a lot of times they're really seen to be as a threat because there's no male protection. Now all of a sudden, oh my gosh, she's out there and wanting to look attractive again and all that stuff, not just for her husband, but what for other men. And so, the thought for some married women is my husband now going to build or develop an attraction for her if he didn't have it before, kind of in the back of his mind? And is that something he's going to want to act on? And so for a lot of women, when they become single, they're surprised by how many friends that they lose. And not only that, but sometimes, your friends, either they don't have the skill set to know how to comfort you. They're afraid that whatever negativity happened in your relationship, it might spill onto their relationship. Or they're afraid you're going to be, always constantly talking about all the bad and horrible things. And, they're afraid that you're going to be negative Nelly all the time. And are just kind of spewing and spewing and spewing. And they feel like, they don't know how to handle that. They don't want to be around that. And, they don't know how to help to comfort you and redirect you and give you godly wisdom and guidance and really point you to Jesus when you're in that hard place. So
Jesus is the word right there. You said it right there. I found comfort in Christian churches and in their groups. It's, first of all, very economic. A lot of them are risk-free. But the most important thing is that those people are driven by God to come up with godly answers. I mean, they make mistakes too, but for the most part, they're trying, and there's usually oversight groups that govern them. When I was doing the divorce care classes, there's an oversight group that watches what I do to make sure that I'm following their rules and regulations and so on. But yeah, if you're just getting single, enjoy. When I look back now, some of the best times of my life were those first 2 years and 3 years and 4 years even, when I was learning more about myself and about other people, about what the world really was. When you're married, you kind of make this world that you have between the two of you, and you're staying in that world. It's a wonderful world, don't get me wrong. But you kind of forget that other world that's out there. And when you start regenerating, see it again, you go, wow, this is cool,
Yeah.
For instance, I was around the world twice when I got divorced. I've been around the world, China, India, Czech Republic, and so on. My world opened up after the divorce. And I don't like divorce, but my life really just accelerated. And part of it was I was with the wrong person. Most of you will say that too, I think, that you must have been with the wrong person. So you weren't able to grow and do things. In fact, I enjoy doing things with you. I mean, it's really a joy for me. And we were just talking about passion today. There's a passion, whereas I didn't feel that in the marriage.
Okay, now I remember what I wanted to the most important thing that I think that I learned in my dating is when I first started dating again after divorce is that, at least in my humble opinion, it's a really bad idea to date casually. To not have a purpose to dating. And for me, the purpose of dating is to eventually to marriage. And that doesn't mean that every single person that, who approached me at the time, I thought, oh, that has to be my husband. Not saying that, but my idea is, okay, I'm getting to know this person to see, if there's any potential for, if he's, my type of marriage material for me. Not to say that every person who I didn't date is not marriage material. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that they weren't right for me. That they might make a great husband for someone else. That's beautiful. But they weren't going to be my husband.
Mm-hmm.
And so dating casually, because I was like, oh, it'll be fun. I really didn't date before. Let's get out there and see. I mean, that was just the dumbest thing, because that's how I got mixed up with the wrong person, who ended up being a hoarder, who ended up just was not looking for love. He was looking for help. And I got too invested in the relationship too quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I really saw, I was able to blow away the smoke and mirrors. I'm like, oh gosh, and so you get mixed up when you casually date. You still get entangled and mixed up in other people's drama, their, whatever's going on, whatever they need help with, whatever it is, you get entangled emotionally on some level. Unless you're really somebody who can really just turn it off, and just like,
And
I
you'll
can't
get
do
hurt.
that.
You'll get hurt again.
Yeah, you'll get hurt again, yes. And that cost me in more ways than one. I have to admit that. It was a lesson learned.
Mm-hmm.
And I forgive him and I forgive myself.
Well, and on that point, this was written, I forget who wrote the book, but make 2 lists. Mm-hmm. Make a list that is non-negotiable. For instance, in my non-negotiable list, she cannot smoke.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Love people, but I can't deal with smoking either.
Right. Smoking is just it. So, and let's just take this, for example. You make your list. These are non-negotiables. You might have some negotiables in there that they can't have children, for instance. You don't want to have it with some children. Well, you might want to look at that again, because you might bend on that one. So that's not a non-negotiable. It might be on your non-negotiable, but not mine. I love children. But if it was on your non-negotiable and she had children, then don't get in the relationship. Okay. So many people will, and if you read the people who talk about doing these non-negotiable lists and negotiable lists, for instance, if you see them doing drugs or something, well, let's say that you find out that somebody's doing some of your non-negotiable things. But you say, well, he's got all these other wonderful qualities. He's got a great boat, his car is new and all that, and it's really cool, and then otherwise he's okay, look at him, he's getting along with everybody. Mm-hmm. And you kind of ignore his non-negotiable. Eventually you'll crash, right?
Yeah, you blow through the red flags, and yeah.
And it is a red flag, you're right.
Oh yeah.
We talk about red flags too. That would be, the red flag is, the other thing is, red flags are like if I should hear someone lie, and like openly lie. I was in a relationship once with a person didn't want to go to a party with somebody else, and so she just point blank looked at him and said, I just don't have time. I'm not going to. And I'm looking at her like, no, you do have time. The best answer is the honest answer, and that is, I'm really not interested. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it's hard for some people to say. Just say the truth. But when I heard her speak that lie, I'm thinking, she could lie to me, right? Mm-hmm. Just as easily. So, be honest. Be very honest. Make sure you're honest. If you tell a lie, if you exaggerate, which is a lie, try to compensate by the next time, saying, I said this, but I really shouldn't have said that,
Yeah. Yeah. You can always, there is some redemption in going back and correcting, because that reflects good character. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, absolutely. You make a mistake, or you kind of misspoke, or whatever it was. Sure. Going back as soon as you can, right? Yeah, and correcting it and giving some clarification, I think is important. So.
Absolutely. And if you make a mistake, say, "Hey, I've made a mistake."
Yeah.
I don't know if you know anyone in your life that's come to you and said, "I've made a mistake," but my son came to me one time and said, "Dad, I lied to you. Can I tell you what I did and ask your forgiveness?" And yeah. You know what? I trusted him the next time he came to me because of that reason. And that same thing happens to you. I mean, when you come to somebody and say, I really need to come true on this one, mm-hmm. right? And so being honest, just be honest. That's really, I think in some ways it's harder to do as a single. You want to
Yeah.
put your best foot forward, and just being honest, though, they'll eventually find out.
Yeah, you don't keep it and act up for so long.
Right.
So, anyway, I
Yep.
think we're probably going to end it here. 'Cause
End it
we're
now?
at-
We
yeah,
have to?
it's about 45 minutes into it, believe it or not.
Yeah,
So,
she's so quick.
yeah, that's right. So, thank you so much for watching. We appreciate it. Hit that notification button. Absolutely subscribe to our channel so we can bring you more great content. So, until next time, we'll see